Guys, how are you? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is a horror anthology from the United States, English language, released in the year 2016, directed by Anthony Scott Burns, Kevin Kolsch, Dennis Vidmeyer, Nicholas McCarthy, Adam Egypt Mortimer, Ellen Reid, Gary Shaw, Kevin Smith, Sarah Adina Smith and Scott Stewart. So this is a collection of horror short stories that are based on very popular holidays. You've got St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, Halloween, Christmas, New Year's Eve, Father's Day, Mother's Day, and basically all these stories go from bad to very bad very quickly. You've got stories ranging from a woman who wants to find out the truth behind her father's disappearance. You've got this woman who is falling pregnant when every time she has sex, so she believes she's cursed and she wants to put an end to the curse. You've got this guy who buys a Christmas present for his young son, and it turns out that that present's going to have consequences for himself. You've got this guy who's very strange, who goes on a date with a woman who's equally as strange. You've got these webcam girls who work for this guy who wants to do porno, and they hate their boss, so they're going to do play a little prank on their boss that's going to go wrong. You've got this young girl who is obsessed with her swim coach, and you've also got this very strange girl in Ireland who might have some magical ability that is going to have a grave effect on her teacher. So all these stories basically show you the dark side of these beloved holidays and ultimately end up to be a very morbid experience. So what that experience is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on holidays. I was psyched to see this movie. Now I'm a big fan of horror anthologies, and I believe the best horror anthology to come out in a very long time was Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat was centered upon Halloween, and it was basically a whole film. And that's what I loved about it, is that it understood what a true anthology is, because it basically different perspectives of the same world, different perspectives from the same evening, and it combined to make one overall film. And so instead of watching just one collection of the stories based on very popular directors, you've got three stories that intertwine very well, and it feels like it has a wraparound. So although you're watching some short stories, it actually feels like you're watching a whole film. And that's what I loved about Trick or Treat the most. But unfortunately, as far as horror anthologies are concerned, it's kind of lost that aspect, and it's more a collection of films done by very popular directors. But because they don't have any wraparound or don't have any similarities in what they do, it just feels like a very inconsistent piece. And that was ultimately my biggest problem with the film Tales of Halloween, which is a lot of people liked that film, and each to their own, but I didn't like it at all because it had way too many stories and it was over before you know it. So it felt very lazy, it felt very lackluster, and it just felt like these directors were making it just to cash in off the name. And so it just felt like an excuse just to get together and have a little bit of fun and not really take it that seriously. And so it left me wanting so much more from Tales of Halloween, and unfortunately Holidays has that same sort of taste in your mouth. It feels like it could have been better than it actually is, and although this movie is better than Tales of Halloween, it does suffer the very similar problem in that it's trying way too much, and it's not enough to develop each story to the point where you're really going to remember it. Now, there are many problems with this film. Number one, as I said, there are too many films, and just as it's getting good, it's over, and then there might be one very good particular story, and then the next story is not as good. So there's very much up and down, and very inconsistent, and it just leaves you waiting for that one particular story that's going to blow you away, and when it doesn't blow you away, you feel a little bit disappointed. And unfortunately, I felt a little bit more disappointed than I actually felt satisfied with this movie. There were two short stories that were fantastic. The last story, which involved this strange guy going on a date, that was directed by the directors of Starry Eyes, and there was also the Halloween segment of the Webcam Girls, directed by Kevin Smith. Those stories were very morbid, and it actually felt like they had the character traits of that particular director, but the rest of the films just failed to live up to it. I would say the Valentine's story at the start was pretty good, but then there are many segments of this film that don't really weigh up. And so you feel like you're just waiting for something to happen, but it doesn't. And then when you get these two really good stories at the end, you feel, okay, instead of actually enjoying the whole film, I've just enjoyed two short segments. And because I enjoyed these two short segments the most, I felt that it could have been expanded a little bit more by cutting away the unnecessary stories that kind of weigh the film down. So this is ultimately the problem with too many stories, and this is why Trick or Treat succeeded, is because it wasn't trying too much, and it could flesh out these particular stories to a point where you actually feel, okay, I watched a pretty good short story. Now this movie, it could have been 2 hours for all I care. It goes for about an hour and 44, I believe, and I just think that with at least another 20 minutes, maybe another sort of 5 minutes added on each story, it could have been a little bit better. But that is why ultimately the film is so disappointing, is because it is so inconsistent, and that is very similar to the film of Tales of Halloween. Now, the stories are actually very well made. There are some pretty well-known actors in the film. You've got, at the end, Lorenza Issa, who is the wife of Eli Roth. You've also got Seth Green, who is not really particular in horror films, but it was good to see him in there. And there are also some very well-known independent horror actors in there. So as far as production is concerned, it is very well done. The colouring was very good. There's some truly bizarre moments that really took me by surprise, and I actually enjoyed those bizarre moments. And you've got some very good moments of suspense, but as I said, because each story is so short, you can't get sucked into it. And I felt that the weaker stories had a good idea, had a very good sort of synopsis in the overall way it unfolded, but it just felt like it should have been expanded so much more. And because you live so unsatisfied with those little stories, when it comes up to the big stories, yes, you're very happy about what you've got, but it just doesn't feel like it was worth the wait. And ultimately, this movie just felt like a very lackluster experience, and unfortunately, as a result of that, I'm not going to recommend Holidays. If you want a very good anthology and you haven't seen Trick or Treat, I would highly recommend that. I'm also aware of Southbound, which is a movie I haven't seen yet, but I'm very excited to see that one, and hopefully that can deliver more than Tales of Halloween and also Holidays, which is ultimately falls in the same boat. So overall, for Holidays, I'm only going to give it 2 stars. 2 stars because there are some likeable qualities, but overall, it just bites off way more than it can chew. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.